It'd be awesome if I could make this like a 6-day course, right? And talk to you about all the nuances and detail. I mean, that's why I said, earlier on, some really great questions from people, but it's kind of like, that's why I kind of gave you ideas to go with and then say, okay, what can I explore more and play with? How can I play with arm positions with things? How can I play with head positions with things to try and see with what he told me? Or body positions. She seems to present like this a little bit, so we changed that and that actually seemed to be better. Perfect, great. That's what I want to have you do, explore stuff. That's weighing the risk reward. What could go wrong if I give them to do this? Nothing, probably. Then you remeasure, and if there's no change, it probably wasn't the best thing, but no harm done, right? So if you're thinking about doing stuff, just kind of weigh risk reward and then recheck. Recheck takes no time. Then they're also the client sometimes kind of bought in, oh yeah, wow, that felt different. Or that didn't. You're like, oh, okay, great, that didn't work. We're going to try something else now. We're just going to see how this goes. Most of the time, they're going to be just fine with it. If you find that you're spending a lot of time trying to fix something, move on and train them. Do you know what I mean? Like, but that's part of the exploration and part of the educational part is spending a little bit of time with sessions with the clients that you know, with the people that you feel like you've got a relationship with that'll be okay with you doing it, yada, yada, yada. So you can learn a little bit about it. Hey, I learned some new stuff. I want to try a couple things. I think this will be great. You know what I mean? Just 10 minutes, and then you can then begin to kind of learn and grow more about it. Like I mentioned earlier this morning. And then do it on yourself and your spouses and your kids and get together with a friend on a weekend and practice it because it can't always be on the clock. That's the hard part, okay? So that was just ideas. Number one, let me just talk about, you were a great example of this, of cramping in the back. Her brain was figuring out other compensations. So we got her to feel like we did this morning, like get the insides of your feet against the wall. Feel the arches in the big toe. Really kind of access inner line muscles to kind of bring this all in so that her hip lift wasn't like this, but her hip lift was like this. Do you see the difference? It's going to have a pretty profound influence on the outcome. So listen, that's cramping in my back, whatever it is, then say, okay, what am I missing? Or what else do I have to add, like with a Teresa, to be able to then do something to be able to create a change? Because it shouldn't be uncomfortable. There will be a change that'll happen most of the time, and when they get used to it, it usually has more stick to it. It lasts longer, okay? Any questions on that piece? All right, so I want to go through a couple kind of movement things, like I mentioned before. I want to go through a couple of movement activities that I find can be helpful from a training perspective to allow there to be kind of some range of motion, some mobility stuff, kind of activate the system a little bit based upon principles that we talked about. Oh, let me use, can I use you three since I used you in the corner over here? One at a time, come on up and grab a mat. Okay, so what I demonstrated to them, and they kind of like, wait a minute, what's going on? Can you lie on your back for me, please? And I use this kind of like it's just as a teaching tool, but if I take her knee and I take this thigh and push it in this direction, her body moves into that direction pretty cleanly and easily. Excuse me, if I do that on this side, it does not. And they almost always feel that, because always is a strong word, but in my experience, it's always been that way. She moves, and it just doesn't move the same way. Fair to say? All right, Sage, you're up. Get on over here. And just because we were talking about it in the corner and I showed all three, I'm going somewhere with this, I promise. I slide her this way. The pelvis can turn that way, is what I'll say, versus this side where it just does not turn quite the same. You are not perfect. I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry.
Do it again.
You're wicked good. One more. I showed a couple of other people just for conversation's sake. This one young woman from this morning, she moves clean and easy. And then that side, it just gets a little hung up. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay, great. You can go ahead and sit up. I'm just pushing straight down. It's a great question. But here's what's happening inside, and I'll explain what's happening. I take that back. I'll explain what I think is happening. They're on their back, they're like this. This pelvis is rotating this way. And I say pelvis, meaning the sacrum's kind of going with it. You with me? The inlet and outlet are kind of turning towards internal orientation. That's my little dance move, okay? Versus the other side, just not able to do it as cleanly, as easily, as comfortably. Some people, it's a dramatic difference. Remember this morning? Where we talked about internal dynamics and how the patterning of the way that things inside us move and the way that inhalation drives a position and turns the body a certain way and the organs go a different direction. With me? If that happens often and regularly enough, let's say 22,000 times every day, then perhaps it might cause an issue with things not being able to, let's say, I use the word turn a lot, turn into that other direction quite as well. I could go a deep dive into the right-left differences of the way that our brain works and sensory influences and patterning of the body, all this stuff. I'm not going to. It's not what I teach. Well, it is, but point being, that bias is normal, okay? I just don't want it to be too much. I just want to teach people to learn how to manage it a little bit better. And so I teach people to learn to be able to say, what can we do to bring you to positions that offset that a little bit, which is what we're going to talk about now. And we'll talk about then, again, for the next little bit in terms of like split squatting and some other activities as well, too. Does that make sense? Okay. Again, that movement that I do is just something that I don't know, it's just what I do with my clients. It's not a specific technique. I think call it the Mullen test, maybe? I don't know. Too egotistical. But point being is that it's just a good way to kind of demonstrate to people like, oh, holy cow, yeah, you move on your right side differently than you move over and onto your left side. And that helps to kind of explain it a little bit better. Sage is going to figure it out. She will not allow that to happen next time I see her.
Even pushing into our right foot versus our left, we were doing different tests after that.
What do you mean by that? Tell me what you mean by that.
Just like difference.
You felt the difference.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for saying it.
Yeah.
Yes, correct. You're human. It's normal. Yeah. Okay? You ever notice races, running races, hurdle races? Do they ever go clockwise? Car races? They don't, do they? They're always going counterclockwise. Correct? The Greeks, I don't know this, I wasn't there, just to be clear, probably recognized that if my system wants to flow this way, that if I run that way and I'm breathing heavy and now it's really flowing that way, that I might not stay on the track so well. Compared to if I take this and contain it when I'm doing stuff, then I'm managing the flow, not allowing the flow to manage me. I don't know for sure, but they all go one way, okay? You ever drive your car and turn your vehicle one direction versus the other direction? It's different. Watch for it. Watch how you position your body when you do it. Watch what your hands do. Those teenage kids with the hats kind of cockeyed to the one side. They don't lean towards the door, do they? They don't do this. Okay? Behavior then becomes someone. You with me? And then it becomes more normal and more comfortable and easier and more powerful. Ready to go. Oh, I don't know. It's good. I can spend a little more time. Yeah. It's a good question. Make sense? So I have a book up there called Right Hand, Left Hand. It's like thick, it's dense, but it's a deep dive into lateralization and sidedness, if you would. Cortically, functionally, movement-wise. It's an old book. Have you read the book? Have you seen it? It's fascinating, fascinating. And again, as I mentioned, the Institute, Postural Restoration Institute, really kind of opened my eyes to some of this information, and these are just observations that I've made about stuff until like, oh, that makes sense to me why they all go that way. It's not just about muscles and patterns. It's about like, oh, holy cow, we got to stem the flow, manage that. If you have your athletes doing 5-10-5s, you can speak for this right? It's a different plant and turn and a different strategy to do on one side than the other. Not everybody, but most of them you'll see like, oh yeah, if you really look at them, they navigate that differently on one side versus the other. It's pretty normal. Make sense? Okay, so I'm going to go through a couple of movement things based upon this. Teresa. So I want people to learn how to get rib cages to do this, to turn. You've heard me use that word a lot. My clients will say, yeah, I'm doing that twisting thing. I'm like, I never said twist. And that's why I say that. This is a turn. This is a twist. Do you see the difference? I don't have Webster's dictionary verbiage of it, but yes. This is a turn. This is a turn. This is a turn. This is a turn. It's a helix. This is a twist. This is a twist. I took my whole rib cage and turned my rib cage. I didn't turn through my rib cage. What chops should be, to be clear. Do you see the difference now? Does that make sense, Glenna? This is a rib cage turning as a unit. That motion's going to happen on my spine. This is a rib cage that can't turn as much because I'm turning through the rib cage, which is why it's there, is to protect, but to allow movement to occur through it. Triangles, angles, remember all those muscles in that rib cage to allow me to turn properly through it.
Would you say a twist is more one plane?
If we want to use those words, sure. Yep. Yep, absolutely. Be more transverse in the lumbar spine. Probably specific segments, the ones that move the most. There's not much movement in the thoracic spine. Everybody's like, oh, T-spine mobility, T-spine mobility. There's not much there because it's supposed to be here. Not there. I'm not saying don't go after T-spine mobility, but go after rib cage pliability and mobility first, please, and you're going to see some stuff kind of clean up a little bit easier instead of trying to beat down a thoracic spine. Spine's not the issue. It's just following the leader. Did that help? Okay. But like med ball throws, for example, when you can learn to rotate like picturing coiling, that's why I have this crazy little thing here. We can picture coiling and turning and turning and it being sequential. Remember that little spin, my little logo. That's really what I want to have people picturing. And will it limit motion? Yes. But are you gaining more balanced motion through the system? Yes. Are you going to be able to create ultimately more force production? Absolutely you will. And if I got someone who's a sprinter or a dancer and they need that more range of motion, that's awesome. I'm going to give it to them. Once I've contained this first to allow control of it, so now they can explore these ranges with less compensatory stuff, which unfortunately, this is not a bashing of yoga at all ever, what yoga has become, which is overstretching and overarching and overmoving through structures versus being able to guide the system through structures and use the meditative piece and the respiratory element to help restore good balance to the brain and the body. Does that clarify that piece? Great. So, can you go on your hands and knees? So in this position, what I'm going to have you do is, Her arms and thighs are going to be vertical. She's going to, let me coach you first. You're going to bend your elbow, have it come close to the side of the body. Thumb goes forward, and you're going to think about lifting your rib cage with your elbow, and then lower. You're going to inhale as you come up. Exhale as you go down. Your head follows. Okay? So I cued her on lifting from underneath. Do that a couple of times for me, please. I'm letting her cheat. Do you see what I see? You see what I see? Good. And then relax for me, please. Okay. So do me a favor now. I want to have you round your back a little bit for me right there. Good. Stay right there. Don't lose that shape, please. Okay? Do the same thing again. Great. You got it. Can you see you can't go as far that way?
Right.
Okay. Lift the ribs. Great. And then lower. I'm just guiding it up. So all I'm doing, plenty. Don't go any higher. Keep that little round. Keep that little round. Reach. Yeah, there you go. Nice correction. Great job. Inhale coming up. And then exhale coming down. One more time. Inhale coming up. Exhale coming down. Inhale coming up. Exhale coming down. So you can see what we did. Okay, I let her do it initially so people could kind of see, and then I just kind of took that more arching element out of her back so she could get more of a turn through her rib cage. Because like we talked about, you can sit back however you need to. Thank you. If she likes being here, we've got to get it to be able to come back so she can turn more fluidly through her whole system. She talked about her kink spot right through there. She's trying to get it to turn and rotate a little bit better. Could you up front here see the difference in her rib cage position on the back when she was on her hands and knees? And her was a little more forward on that left side. See that? Can you go back to your position? And see how she falls down a little bit more on that side compared to this side. Okay? So, as she elevates her left elbow towards her side, I'm going to cue her, just really think about this left side coming up. Great, awesome. And then come back down for me, and then don't lose that. And then come up on the right side. Great. And then as you bring that left elbow up, really think about lifting that left rib cage. There, great job, awesome. You feel your abs working a little bit?
Yeah. What am I supposed to be doing here? Should I still be trying?
Yep, still try to keep that little round, yep. Does it make sense what I did? Just giving her a little more, addressing the sidedness piece a little bit more to allow her to be able to get there a little bit easier, okay? So if you see stuff, realize, it's plenty, thanks. Just cue them differently, one side versus the other. I just showed you with 3 superstars up front that the pelvis isn't going to be the same, rib cages aren't going to be the same in many cases, so.
Did I see a little bit, it looked like when she was originally in bed doing, that she was trying to get more motion out of
Correct.
the shoulder.
Correct.
And feeling that she was opening more, but she really wasn't.
Correct. I'm not trying to, that's where the challenge sometimes comes with people is, you say mobility, like, mobility, woohoo, go big or go home, right? That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get controlled mobility into ranges where they don't normally use it as much. Get this to turn and coil one direction, get it to turn and coil the other direction. And then let them do it a few times. Again, I let her do it a couple times so you could kind of see, let her feel. That's why she could move so much easier, because she could hinge into that spot where she mentioned she's sore more. Does that feel okay? Great.
Better.
Great. Awesome. But again, same idea. It depends upon you and your comfort level with putting hands on people to coach them. For those that can't do that as much, I just lifted a little, gave it a little guidance. You okay with my hand here? I do it in front of all of you, not just for show. It's what I do with all my clients. You okay if I have my hand here? I just want to check it, make sure. I love when they say, yeah, just do whatever you need to do. That's great, I'm good. Then I can just kind of move on. Okay? But again, don't assume things are going to be the same. They're almost always not going to be that way. Lie on your left side. Can you face that way for me, the crowd? So, activity number 2 is going to be this. She's going to be on her left side. Her feet are going to be stacked. Her knees are going to be stacked. Her elbow is going to be right underneath her shoulder. Okay? She's going to lift her hips up in the air like this by pushing through her elbow and pushing both knees down. Okay? Left into the ground, right into the left knee. Arm's going to come up like this. She's going to come underneath this way, and she's going to go back up that way. Okay?
Kind of modified thread the needle.
Kind of modified thread the needle. When you're ready. Hips up. Make sure you push both knees down. Great. And then you're going to keep your hips up the whole time. Reach underneath your rib cage, and then reach back up in the air. So I only gave her those cues. Okay? And as she comes up, what do you think she's going to do with her back? Yes, exactly. Come back down and rest for a sec for me, please. I just did that on purpose, okay? Because her body wants to go back to what it's used to. I'm trying to take some motions away from where her body likes using it. So, when you come up, I want to have you come up and back. Can you see the difference?
Yes.
Don't lift your arm up any higher than you feel your first sense of resistance, because anything past that, you're going to have to compensate. So you're only going to get to probably about here before you come back down. Please. So you're coming up, and ribs go back. Yep, stay right there. And then come underneath. Great. Come up with control. Only as high. There you go. Do that a few times for me, please. Really hard, right? Okay, good. Exhale, coming underneath. Inhale, going up. See how straight she is. Okay, I just want to get another set of eyes. Thank you. One more for me, please. Awesome. Exhale, coming underneath. Inhale, coming up. Good. And then lower and relax for me, please. Hard, right?
Yeah, really hard.
Okay. Did you feel kind of like rounded and slouchy?
Yes, very compressed.
Was she?
No, straight.
Straight.
Really straight. Yeah.
I wanted someone else to tell her. I didn't want it to be me. Okay? Really straight. But when you're used to here, and remember, our whole perception, I mean, this gives so much input, is going to feel different. Okay? That's where you need the coach's eye. That's where you need your expertise to kind of get them back. And then even having that dialogue, like, okay, I guess it's supposed to feel like when I do it at home. All right, I got it.
Yeah.
Okay? And she could take that back. You probably felt like you were limited in your motion.
Very. Yeah.
Great.
Like I knew I had a lot more motion if you let me be more free.
Correct. No! Lie on your other side for me, please. Great. And then same idea. Elbows right underneath. Drive both knees. Bring your rib cage back towards me, right towards my hand, right there. Awesome. Great. Keep those hips up in the air by pushing through those legs. Awesome. Stay right there. Don't lose that. Arm up in the air. Great. Come underneath for me, please.
Remind me the breath.
That's okay. Do whatever you want to start. I just want to have you secure the position. That was a great question. That's what they all kind of say, well, how am I supposed to breathe here again? Great. And I'm just, for right now, for her, I'm just letting her just figure it out positionally. Yeah, feel free to check it out, anybody. Yeah, great adjustment. Awesome. Less is more. You make sense? Great. 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 Don't hit my hand when you come up with your arm. Come back down. Great. Come back up. Oh, and then go back down for me, please. And then relax for me. So all I did was I gave her a cue and said, don't hit my hand. Okay? Because she had to slow down to not go as far. Versus hit my hand, which would have been, woo, I'm going back there. With me? So use things as constraints to help cue them, because I want to bring her further in. I want to have her feel, I'm sorry, more compressed in some way through certain parts of her body that aren't normally as compressed, to allow more balanced expansion in all directions. That feel okay?
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, it feels like a complicated side plank, which I really don't like, so.
You don't like them in general
I
anyway?
don't like them, no. And they're way harder for me to do, left side than right side.
Okay.
So,
Does that make sense to anybody? If her guts are being pulled into the floor, and every breath she takes, it's pulling it further into the floor, and I'm making her have to hold it up more, does that make sense why it's harder for her? Okay. That won't be the same for everybody. Different people have different things, but many people, that's kind of the case. Can you get onto one knee and one flat foot?
does that mean half kneeling?
Yes, ma'am. That's right. You're in the industry. I was talking to my clients. Half kneeling, what the heck is that? Okay, so in this position, can you see how she's getting into the position she likes to be? Okay, so move your right foot back a little bit. Right there for me. I want to have you picture that your rib cage, like my hands are right here, and you've just kind of pulled it back a little bit. Good, stay right there for me. Reach both arms forward for me, please. Good, don't move anything down below, and just bring your upper body forward. Stay right there for me, please. Great, put your arms at your side. Good, stay right there for a sec. It's ridiculous. Is she straight? Okay.
I feel like I'm doing this.
Remember all the pictures. Okay, awesome. Take a couple of easy breaths in this
Am I still,
position.
right?
Good. It's a little harder to move air.
Change my personality.
I will. You can't be any brighter than you already are. It can't happen.
No, I think it's like turn my light down.
Yeah. Come on. Okay, so that's just cueing. Like, I'm not going to have her do an activity back where she was starting, okay? So for her, now she's going to stay in this position.
This is so much work on this.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. Left arm goes forward. Bend your elbow. Great. Right elbow bent, goes back. Stay right there for me. Hold that position. Come forward and inhale. And then exhale and come back for me, please. Good. Do that for me 5 times. So I'm just securing the position and creating a weight transfer. Okay?
So really, I wanted to.
You're doing fabulous. You're doing awesome. So you're going to stay in that sagittal plane. So she's getting a turn into her right hip and pelvis. Okay? Which is okay. I know you know that, but you know where I'm going, right? Great. Awesome. This looks like a sprinter position. Is that right? So she looks like she's sprinting, even though she feels like she's about to collapse. Great. And then switch sides for me, please. Now, because what I want to have her do will be too advanced to have her do successfully. That's why I'm having her do just the weight transfer with holding an isometric position. I want to have her do eventually this and this to create the turn through the body. But she wouldn't be able to do it successfully. It's just too much. She doesn't know that. I told her now in front of everybody, but so I just said, okay, I don't think she'll be successful. What do? I'm going to pack this into the position that she's challenged with, keep that there, and then give her a weight transfer to be able to help to kind of secure that a little bit more. Great. Left foot in about 2 or 3 inches. Right there. Okay, look down. Can you see that your femur is straight now and not to the side? You thought it was easier. Good. Make sure you feel weight through the left side. Yeah, stay there. Oh my gosh, you don't. There you go. Don't lose that load, and then go back for me, please. Awesome. And just don't hold your breath as you do it. Different now, right?
Yeah, it's much harder.
Okay. So all she was out here. It's so much easier because it's like a kickstand. It's like just holding her up. She's not using it. She was just leveraging off it. Least favorite person again. You get the idea?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes? I like toe tucked under when you can because they're going to get better leverage. They're going to get tension in their quads. Her in particular, she loves her quads, so I'm not surprised she felt that side working like crazy. Some people with bunions, they can't do it as comfortably, and that's, then you have to kind of figure that out.
I think she's talking about how I've increased my surface area with my foot like this. Yes.
Oh, I missed that part. Got it. Yeah, I say tuck your toes. But when I'm teaching, sometimes I miss some of these things because I'm thinking about these other things. Thank you. You're awesome.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, right.
Now I'm just going to fall down.
You could go however you want. But can you see that if that's, thank you, yep, all day long. I can leverage myself right on top of my right side. Sure, you want me to do this? You betcha, I got this. Woohoo, lift weights, absolutely. Tuck it to have to shift my weight over here like I'm pushing off my right onto my left. That'll be harder. Put it in line, like hip width apart, like it's supposed to be when I walk. Oh my gosh, now it's suddenly harder. And now suddenly it's a very different activity. So she's moving in the sagittal plane. I'll go plane or talk just to teach, okay? But she's getting a weight transfer and turn into her opposite side. So she's getting a frontal plane into transverse plane transition, if we want to use those words. A turn. i.e. a split squat. Can you see that? So we have something quadruped, we have something on the side, we have something in half kneeling. But you can see she, like most of your clients, are going to kind of figure out cheats. So it's a great way to kind of warm people up, and you guys get to all do it now.